Hey guys, Mike here. So another loaded video for you, and we made it through another week here, a very volatile week. And so we're going to get into some of the stocks like Tesla, like what happened to semiconductors today, right? If you missed that one. And also some positive news for the housing market, which I love to actually report. And also I want you to pay close attention to this commodity because it could be a canary in a coal mine because it's starting to look like it wants to make a move. And of course, with the yield curve coming close to uninverting, when that happens, what happens after that, weeks, months, whatever it is, usually we talk about a recession. And when you see this commodity, it actually acts a lot differently than you think it would if there was a recession on the horizon. So it kind of give you a warning signal there. But starting off with the housing data, look at that. United States pending home sales year over year finally up in the positive at 1.2. When, I mean, look at that. Could it get any worse? My goodness. I mean, look at this chart right here. This is month over month. And so it was much higher than what they actually expected. And so that was actually good for pending home sales month over month. You see the kind of increase right there. But just look at that. I mean, maybe you're finally starting to carve out a bottom. Maybe people are finally going to start buying and getting in these houses and coming off the sidelines. We'll have to see. And so, you know, always say, can it get any worse? Maybe, but you would think we're somewhere near bottom on this whole thing, right? Now, the commodity to watch is going to be oil. You can see it's kind of making it quiet move up right here. Gets around the 200. MACD's over the zero line now. RSI is looking good. Again, it's got to get through the 200. It's got the 100 right above. And, you know, if it does, obviously you can see a charge up to 83.27, probably the next level. But the question is it going to come back up into this daily fair value gap where it's rejected twice right now and reacted down on or not? And the reason why this is important to watch, and I'm not saying this is the move, but look for a move in oil, because if you go back to the last recessions, you can see here's 08. What's it doing? It's running up. You would think it would not do this. Some of you guys put in the comments probably like 4 or 5 months ago. So if you can put it back down there, why this is, why oil runs up, because you think there'd be a problem with demand, right? Because the economy is slowing, but it runs up right before the recession happens and everything. Even if you go back to, I believe this is 91 right here, which is a shorter one. You know, it runs up into the recession. That can't be because of demand thing. It has something to do with prices. One of you guys explain it to me. So if you'll put it in the comments again, I'll put that comment on the next video to elaborate on it. Because, and guys, before we continue, if you can please hit that like button, that little thumbs up down there, helps people find the video, helps out the channel. And if you like down-to-earth content, talking about the financial markets, don't try to talk over your head, then think about subscribing. Knowing oil goes up, so if we see oil start to move up, right, that's kind of a red flag to go, wait a minute, is demand increasing or something like that? And then we watch copper. What usually happens to copper? Well, if demand's waning, you should see Dr. Copper heading down, usually a signal that the market's going to be heading with it. So we'll keep those two commodities in mind, but I always like to just share stuff when I come across it and everything. And I was just noticing, wow, oil actually is starting to kind of make a move. And if it does start to go up, what does that do? That puts more stress on us, the consumer, right? Because oil affects everything, as we've seen this before, right? Gas prices, shipping costs, everything, because everything moves in this country by truck or by freighter ship, you know, that kind of stuff. So keep that in mind. Now, when it comes to Tesla, everybody's jumping on this one and giving them downgrades, right? They have multiple downgrades a day. I mean, massive price target downgrades on some of these. But understand, you know, when you're looking at this, and I've said this for a long time, here's their revenues, okay? Some people will tell you this is not a car company, but when 86% of your revenue comes from cars, even though they're much more sophisticated cars, it's a car company, okay? Because your service and energy generation and storage only make up about 14%. That is growing. And understand they use AI and, you know, all this other stuff, sophistication, to build the cars for cheaper in their plants, which is good. But they have to start finding a way to generate more revenue with AI, with robotics, because that's why this has such a multiple when it comes to the price of Tesla. Like, you know, they always say the robo-taxi is already priced in. And so eventually you have to start producing or the price will drop and the market doesn't want to pay that price anymore. That's where we got to figure out when people say, where's the bottom on Tesla? It's what the market's willing to pay, right? We did get the oversold bounce just like we thought we would, because it's been, I mean, we haven't seen this since it was at 103. Of course, it's going to get some kind of bounce, even with downgrades coming in, right? And it's setting to those key levels. But again, it's about how many days it takes to bottom out. Okay, we talked about this yesterday. Usually 5 to 11 normally, if it's not going to be a much more bigger sell-off. The benefit for Tesla, though, is the fact it was already selling off. It was selling off from 265 for weeks on end before it even reported the earnings. Because if it would have been running up in earnings, it would definitely be heading down even harder now. But it's not, and it's coming into those important fib levels around 177, really needs to hold and stuff when you look at it and everything. And, because again, I pull out on a weekly here and you can kind of see, I just put this arc in here to see if it's going to hold. It's hit off this multiple times. We'll see if that happens again. Usually around 174, 173, somewhere in there. But when we pull up the volume profile, it's going to be fun trying to get through all that again, by the way. But again, and we'll kind of zoom out a little bit and you kind of see, 177 is key. If that breaks, then of course you got this big volume gap right here where, could it drop down to that next volume shelf around 147? Yeah, I mean, it could absolutely happen. It depends on what the market wants to happen. But right now you need big money coming in. Retail keeps buying the dip, but you need big money. But understand, this is in a downtrend again. You look to the left, that was a downtrend, right? This is in a downtrend, okay? It's about at the bottom of, when I look at this and try to tweak it a little bit, bottom of the channel, right? I don't mean it can't fall out of the bottom of the channel, but that is a downtrend. Lower highs, lower lows, all that fun stuff. And when we kind of zoom in a little bit, you can see we hadn't quite touched the bottom of the channel, but we're getting very close to it. And it kind of lines, again, with those fibs and everything, the bottom of that volume shelf, that kind of stuff. So we'll see if we get a bounce from that. I don't mean it is the bounce. It just means people are stepping in a little bit. But this one sometimes takes time to figure out what the market wants as a bottom for Tesla. And understand, if you're in Rivian, I've showed this to members, this one's going to suffer as long as Tesla suffers, no matter what it reports pretty much, because if you look at the Tesla chart, you pull it up on here with it, it's almost identical. Okay, if Tesla moves up, so does Rivian. When Tesla suffers, so does Rivian. Okay, and so just keep that in mind. Don't matter what Rivian does. I mean, maybe if they come out, I don't know if they got earnings soon or not, but maybe if they report great earnings, they'll get a pop. But it'll probably be much more subdued, because when the king of EVs is suffering, all EVs usually suffer. Now, you might notice semiconductors had a down day today. Shocker there finally. We did talk about these being overstretched, but it wasn't nothing to do with AMD. It wasn't nothing to do with NVIDIA. You see the charts look identical, right? Small pop down. It all had to do with Intel. As I said in the morning brief, you got Intel dropping 10% this morning and going down 12. What happened was they hit on earnings, but again, on the current quarter, come in way below expectations, right? For the first quarter, they said, the earnings are going to be like 0.13% earnings per share. They were expecting 0.34, so not even close. And when it comes to the revenue, almost $1 billion under what they actually were expecting. That's the street was expecting, right? And so they didn't like that, so bam, you get knocked down. Okay, it's not the first time this company has gapped down on earnings or nothing, but again, this is Intel. It's not like your high flyers, AMD or NVIDIA, but it's had a huge year. I think it's up over 100% for the year, and you can see those huge red bars down there. A lot of selling, but this is one of those stocks, unlike AMD and NVIDIA, it has a lot. I understand, I think I remember reading about this one. It has a lot of government contracts, a lot of government backing and everything, and so it's not a fancy or a sexy name or anything like that. But you can see, nice year right there, right? And again, a lot of semiconductors, these move in tandem, like a lot of other sectors and stuff. And so we'll see if this is going to continue to sell down. I mean, I think when we kind of look at it, we can pull up the volume profile, we'll pull up the moving averages on this one. And can it continue to show weakness? Absolutely, right? I mean, when you look at this one right here on the weekly, obviously it's nowhere near its all-time high like a lot of these other semiconductors. But when you look, I mean, obviously that's going to be tough to get through in the first place. So it ran into that volume shelf right there. But below, if it continues to sell off, yeah, it can absolutely show more weakness. That's for sure, especially after kind of guiding for that quarter. But it's not like, I mean, it's stretched for Intel, but it's not stretched when you compare it to the other AI hype names, right? And so we saw the one just that I showed you, they were way overstretched. This one right here is actually below its 50 with this sell-off right here. And so, again, the 100, 200 is right there. So we'll see what the semiconductors go next week. And, you look at Netflix. I just want to put this in here because this thing right here is super strong, man. Surprisingly, no pullback. Like the last 3 days in earnings, I mean, still pulling and pushing right through this fair value gap, right? Which normally you would expect a move down, a reaction off of it, right? And when we look at this one, which eventually that's going to happen for sure. You can't just continue to go up and up and up. But remember, this one's nowhere near all-time highs, right? This one, when you scroll to the left, it's still got room to actually go up, unlike a lot of the Mag 7. And when we pull up the volume and everything on this one, you can see kind of what's been happening, right? It gets this huge spike up, and then they'll start trying to consolidate, fairly quickly here, and then go for another pop, right? And so, or you obviously get the big red candles, but you get a big spike up and followed by a slow grind up. That's usually what it's been doing. So we'll get to see. And again, if it cuts right through that fair value gap, I'll be absolutely stunned. But again, what's moving it's not retail, not those prices. That is big money pushing that thing up. So I expect to pull back at some point in time here soon, and some consolidation. Now, PayPal, nice green candle today, bounced off the 50. It's done it multiple times. So it bounced off the 100, bounced off the 50, but once again, running that brick wall, the 200, that trend line, right? And we pulled up the volume profile. You can see it's right back to square one, trying to get through all of that right there. If it can, though, I mean, eventually you would think it's going to go back up in that gap. But again, till you get above a 200, we'll have to see. Now, one thing that's going to affect PayPal, Square, all the rest of them, because they usually moved in tandem, it's going to be SoFi on Monday. It reports earnings right here. As you can see, this has been stuck in a range what feels like forever, below all its moving averages. If you get good earnings, obviously you're going to complete that bullish MACD cross, RSI above the 50 maybe, get above these moving averages, and as you can see on the volume profile, it's going to need a good push to get above that, but it's got above it a couple times, done what? Just sold right back down, right? And so that's what we got to see. So I got $10 is really tough. If it does sell down, you got a trend line right below, volume shelf. Maybe some people will step in on this one, but this has been a tough mover. I mean, plenty of support right there, as you can see. It just will not break out into stage 2. It's still, as far as I'm concerned, stuck in stage 1 right now. And if it does have good earnings, understand this isn't an upstart in a firm. I've showed you it has, was it close to 1 billion shares outstanding out there. So this is a big float as well. So if you get, 5 to 8% pop, 10 max, that's a good thing. Right, it's not going to move 20 and 30% on earnings normally like an upstart or firm, because they have a very, very small float and they're heavily shorted. Not sure if you know what the short interest is on SoFi, I put it in the bottom and stuff. I mean, technically, they own a bank and do all this fun stuff, have SoFi Stadium and all that good stuff. But, I'm hoping this thing will finally start to break out into a stage 2. I know a lot of people will be happy to see that. So we'll see what happens, but it probably will affect all the other fintechs. So just keep that in mind if you own the other ones. That's usually what you get to see there. So anyway, hope you guys got some out of it. Tomorrow I have the video answering all your questions. You asked a lot of good questions, and we'll highlight some comments. Sunday, we got a huge week next week. I'm talking about a lot of Mag 7s reporting, a lot of econ stuff is going to happen. So it's going to be an extremely volatile week next week. So I'll set that in Sunday's video for you. Besides that, I hope you have a great weekend, and I will see you tomorrow.